Welcome to Story Time with Veridicus Viking.
Hey, Motor Warriors. It's another story time with Veridicus Viking. That'd be me. Anyway, I've mentioned in other little story time things that I've done that all of these, stories from my youth are a long, long time ago. And I have not been that kind of person for a really long time. So bear that in mind and don't judge what I'm like now on the way I was when I was a young guy. But anyway, today's story, in case you didn't read the title, it is called Mrs. Flannigan and the Flying Booger. Now, Mrs. Flannigan, I was in, I think, 7th or 8th grade, something like that. I was kind of an odd fit in school because I hung around and got high with hippies, but I played football. So I kind of always gotten along with everybody, But anyway, Mrs. Flannigan was this lady that everybody loved her. I mean, I liked her. She was a really nice old lady. Now, she was a school teacher for umpteen million years, been around since dirt was created by God, and she retired. Well, so many people, the parents were saying, oh man, we need Mrs. Flannigan. My son is having trouble, focusing on studying and reading, and Mrs. Flannigan's so good, and she helped my other kids, and she was a teacher when I was a kid, that kind of thing. And so they basically, begged her to come back and teach, and so she did. And she was a real sweet old lady. I mean, really old, but she was really sweet. Well, anyway, she'd have these times that were supposed to be like, she taught English, and she'd have like one class where the class was nothing but sitting around and reading stuff. You could either read some of the stuff she had, or you could bring in your own. And some dudes, brought in comic books, and, obviously there was no, you couldn't bring pornography, because one guy was actually stupid enough he was going to do that, and she saw it, it was like, and she took it and, put it in her desk, said, when your parents come, I'll give it back to them, but you're not getting this. And it's like, what an idiot. But anyway, you could read pretty much whatever. And if you sat and you were quiet and you chatted a little bit here and there, as long as the main part was that you were reading, she was really nice, and she just let you do your thing. And her attitude was that if you were spending more time reading than you were just hearing her talk about English, you'd actually pick up a lot of stuff that way. I mean, really smart lady, really sweet. And I kind of feel bad that I did this. But anyway, what happened, and it was nothing to her really, but anyway, what happened is I was just kind of like getting over a pretty intense cold, and my nose, how you get drippy, slimy snot that comes down, and you can get part of it where it's like crusty, and part of it's, gushy, and part of it's like okra juice, really slimy and whatever. Well, anyway, I was sitting around with some friends, and thank you, dude. I was sitting around with some friends, and we're kind of like quietly talking among ourselves, and there's some girls that looking over, and they didn't like the fact that I was, playing football, but hanging around hippies. And I was a hippie. My hair was long, but I was never really a jock, but I was athletic, but I was more of a hippie than anything. Anyway, so she didn't, that little group of girls, that little clique, they didn't like the fact that I was hanging around the hippies. And so I thought, well, you got to learn in life to get along with everybody. And so I picked my nose, knowing what was hanging up inside there. And when I got my finger out, and the dry, crusty part was hanging to the tip of my finger, but there was this stream of snotty booger about that long, just dangling, and it was pretty thick near the top. It was like big, slimy, nasty stuff. And I didn't want to hack it up and swallow it, because I've never really been into swallowing my own snot, right? And so I held that thing, and the guys that I was hanging around with, man, they were trying to like crack up, and Mrs. Flannigan looked, so I kind of turned my back so she couldn't see. But there's this big long booger, you know, hanging off my fingertip. And I took my hand and I started going like this, and that thing is like swirling around, and those girls were all like, and they were, you know, ready to say something. And then finally, you know, one of the guys said, "I dare you to fling that thing across the room." And I don't know if you know what a topo map, you know, topographical map. I don't know if they still make them from plastics and stuff, but they used to have these really nice, you know, plastic topographical maps that would show mountains and valleys and, you know, all the hollers and, you know, the little ravines, whatever, the hollers. And it was, you know, this huge thing. It must have been, you know, 8 feet wide or bigger, you know, and it was pretty tall. And I mean, you know, but anyway, that plasticky map, she would always refer to it and say, you know, here's where this story was written, and this guy wrote this up in the mountains of Tennessee, and this guy did that, and she'd always use that topo map, you know, the topographical map to point and show you. I mean, she was cool. Anyway, I'm slinging that thing, ripping it around on my finger, and I went and let that thing fly. My friend's eyes all got big as, you know, baseballs. The girls gasped, and that thing, it made a splat when it hit that big, huge plastic topographical map. And Mrs. Flannigan had her back to me when I did it, of course, and she heard that splat. She turned and looked to see what was going on. The girls are looking like they're ready to vomit. The guys that I'm hanging around with are cracking up. And then, you know, she's like, "What was that?" And then one of the dudes said, "Oh, David just closed his book," or something funny. And then she was like, "Okay, no problem, you know, hope you enjoy what you're reading, David." And then she turned back around and, you know, was talking to the kids she was talking to. And man, I tell you, when that thing hit that map, I swear that's how the mountains of Tennessee got green. That thing just, you know, it's like you sit and swirl, 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 fling, and off that thing went. And yeah, that was, you know, pretty interesting story. And I didn't want to go near that class for a while. I didn't want to go near that map. I almost went and apologized and was willing to clean it off, but I found out that the janitor would always come in and dust it. So I happened to, you know, the next class where we were kind of do whatever we want, I kind of like walked over and I was looking at the map, and she said, "Do you like that map?" And I said, "Yeah, it's pretty cool, you know, the plastic and the mountains are raised." And she was like, "Yeah, that's why I keep it in the room. I really enjoy this map." And it was kind of a interesting thing. I found out my friends were telling people what had happened, and they were all cracking up, thought it was funny, and I thought, man, you know, this is going to get back to Mrs. Flannigan, you know. So after that, you know, I told them, you know, don't do that, man. I don't want her to know that I did it. I like her, you know. It wasn't anything against her. It was just trying to be funny, and you know, and it was. But anyway, so after that, I felt kind of guilty every time I'd see her. And it's like, man, you know, I flung this big, giant, snotty booger. And it's like, man, I felt bad. So I didn't tell her, I didn't say anything, you know, but I always wondered in the back of my head, did somebody tell Mrs. Flannigan and she knew that I did it, but she was so nice and, you know, that she didn't say anything to me. But anyway, now I got it off my chest, and oh, I feel so much better. It was me that flung that giant booger swap up on Mrs. Flannigan's plastic topographical map up into the mountains. And yeah, well, actually it really hasn't been bothering me, but it's a story time video, folks, and I thought I'd just, you know, share that with you. That's the story of Mrs. Flannigan and the flying booger. And I hope y'all got a laugh out of it. I hope y'all enjoyed it. And I'm sure that dear sweet Mrs. Flannigan's long been gone. She was really old when she came back to teach. And I'm sure, and we're talking, you know, a really long time ago. So she'd have to be, you know, way into her hundreds by now for sure. Probably like 160 or something. But anyway, all right, Moto Warriors, I appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching, and I hope y'all are staying safe. And don't live your life in fear, and don't live your life, you know, being paranoid about the things that are going on around now. Just use common sense and safety precautions, and you know, remember to wash your hands right before you take a crap and wipe your butt, and then go eat somewhere right after that. Anyway, and don't forget to touch the doorknob, because I got to touch that doorknob after you. So yeah, make sure you don't wash your hands after you go to the bathroom, because then that way I can touch it. All right, thanks for watching, Moto Warriors. As always, live your life with the heart of a Viking warrior. Bye for now.